This is it. This is the entire Fan Clan Master Set for Temporal Forces. It took us almost 2,000 booster packs to complete, but it is finally done, and now we get to give it away to one of you. One lucky subscriber is going to win this entire Master Set of Temporal Forces, and if you want to be that lucky subscriber, here's what you have to do. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, so scroll down, hit that subscribe button if you're not already, and then head over to this video right up here that I'm pointing at. Leave a like and a comment on this video, and then come back on Friday, April 5th. You should watch every video in between, but on Friday, April 5th, we will announce the winner at the beginning of the video who gets to take home this entire master set. Good luck. Whew. Biscuits. I thought I had a really good idea for a video today. I thought it was going to be absolutely slapping. I got a banger of a video idea for you guys today. But now I'm not so sure. I do still think that it's a good discussion. I think it's a good topic for a discussion. But I have been really in my own head, and this is how the Fanny brain operates, playing devil's advocate. And I've got a lot of really good data to kind of support my claim, and I should probably stop rambling and talk about what today's topic actually is. We've been spending a lot of time over the past few days talking about how bad Temporal Forces pull rates are, because it is very difficult to pull a special illustration rare. It is very difficult to pull a hyper rare, especially when you compare it to past Scarlet and Violet sets. So we used to get one or the other. In the early Scarlet and Violet sets, like Scarlet and Violet Base, Paldea Evolved, you would get sometimes two special illustration rares, sometimes one special illustration rare and one hyper rare. It might have been a combination. And then really with Paradox Rift, it started going backwards a little bit where you only got one, but you at least got one of either a special illustration rare or a hyper rare. And now 40% of the time with Temporal Forces, you get nothing. You get no special illustration rare, no hyper rare. Pull rates much more difficult than what we have seen throughout the Scarlet and Violet generation. And there's been a lot of talk about how that is going to impact the pricing on single cards. And I thought, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I'm going to look at past sets, compare pull rate data. I don't think that pull rates really are a true indicator that drive a pricing model. I don't see. I think demand is really the thing that drives the pricing model. That's why you have like an alternate art Sandaconda selling for $4 and an alternate art Dragonite V selling for $100. It's because there is so much more demand for that Dragonite V than that Sandaconda, even though they have similar pull rates. I think it's really a lot more based on demand. And then last night kind of happened, and we watched Iron Crown, the special illustration rare, basically sell out at like $50 on TCGPlayer, and then overnight get relisted at like $200. And as we look at some of the available listings of Temporal Forces, I still stand by my claim. I still think it's very demand driven, and I still think there's going to be a lot of Temporal Forces that are going to be opened. But you can tell me that I'm wrong. That's fine. I don't think that bad pull rates are a true driving factor of pricing. I really think it's more demand based, and I'm gonna show some data that kind of supports that. And I think that this set, Temporal Forces in specific, is probably the most important set if you're a Pokemon collector and you're a master set chaser and you're somebody who really wants to start collecting some Temporal Forces. I think this is the perfect example of why not FOMOing is so important. Like I as a storefront, as an online storefront, usually I would want you to buy singles. I would want you to buy sealed product. I don't know if, like, maybe just work on Paldea and Fates and just pump the brakes on Temporal Forces for a little. It's a beautiful set. Like, if you want to buy a little bit of the cheaper singles, go nuts. But my ultimate recommendation, it seems like, for to keep things as cost efficient as you possibly can, is to wait. Like right now, it just seems like the market uncertainty when it comes to Temporal Forces is just mind-boggling, and it's really confusing my mind. So maybe after I kind of throw all this information at you guys, we'll talk about it. You know, you guys can maybe drop a comment that'll just drive me to think a little bit more. And you can make the best decision when it comes to spending your collection dollars. It's really the most important thing right now. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that you save the most possible money, because when you burn through money, Pokemon is not, and it's not nearly as much fun. So very important to make sure that you spend your money as wisely as possible. Okay, so we've got Temporal Forces pull rate data on the left-hand side there, and then I'm comparing this set to Astral Radiance, and maybe that's not the best of ideas, but that's what I'm doing as far as pull rates go. So Temporal Forces, we opened up 1,872 booster packs. Astral Radiance, we opened up 2,376 booster packs, so about 14 more booster boxes there. But if you look at the average hit ratio, very, very close here. Average hits including Radiant cards and including trainer gallery cards with Astral Radiance. You got about 14 per booster box, which really, really good. Average hits in Temporal Forces, about 13.85. But you figure, okay, Temporal Forces, you're going to get 2 ace specs per booster box, and you're going to get 3 illustration rares per booster box. That really takes out 5 right there. Really takes out the same that you would get for Radiant cards, the same that you would get for Trainer Gallery cards. So that means your nuts and bolts, your double rares, ultra rares, whatever you want to compare those to as far as Sword and Shield goes, they're going to be your true ultra rares, secret rares, if you want to call them that. They're going to be very comparable to what we've seen in Astral Radiance. So a little bit more on the double rare side of things. You get 6.08 with Temporal Forces versus 4.47 with Astral Radiance, but you also have to remember there are a lot more rarities in Astral Radiance. You have VMAXs, you have V-Stars, like those play a huge factor in things as well. You're going to pull at least a V-Star in every booster box. You're going to pull maybe another V-Star / VMAX, so that's going to impact everything a little bit as well. But if we scroll down a little bit and we look at the numbers in green, so I wanted to figure out, okay, well, what can I compare what can I compare special illustration rares to? Because now you're getting 1 out of every 78 packs. So over 2 booster boxes worth of packs. Remember, it used to be 1 per box. Now we're in a position where you have to pretty much open 3 boxes to guarantee yourself 1 special illustration rare. It's 0.46 per booster box, 1 out of every 78 packs. And I thought, okay, well, what if I can compare that to alternate arts? Well, I can't compare that to alternate arts for Astral Radiance because alternate arts were way more difficult to pull, 1 out of every 264 packs. So you would have to open a case and like 2 boxes in order to guarantee yourself basically any alternate arts whatsoever in Astral Radiance. A lot more difficult to pull. So then I looked down the list and I saw, oh, okay, Rainbow Rares. Rainbow Rares very, very close as far as quantity pulled, as far as pull rate data goes, to average special illustration rares. So you get 0.46 in your booster box with Temporal Forces. At Astral Radiance, you get 0.42. So 1 out of every 85 packs, you will pull a Rainbow Rare. So we have very, very similar quantities when it comes to that. So what I did is I looked at all the Rainbow Rares that were in Astral Radiance to see where the pricing model lands, where all the Astral Radiance prices are landing, because I thought, okay, well, maybe this will be a good indicator of how low pricing can go. And this is, you're going to have to stick with me for this. So demand for special illustration rares, in my mind, is astronomically higher than what we would have seen from Rainbow Rares. Rainbow Rares did not do well. That is why Pokemon, I think, stopped printing them. There wasn't nearly as much excitement as what there was when they got introduced in the Sun and Moon era. A lot of excitement then, but then I think people kind of gravitated more to just the full art versions, the full art variants of the cards. Instead, they were not huge fans of Rainbow Rares anymore. Once like Sword and Shield came out, they were pretty much done with them. So because of that, Rainbow Rares are still extremely expensive, despite the fact that they are a little bit more difficult to pull even than special illustration rares. So demand for special illustration rares much, much higher. But look at how low these Rainbow Rares are. So more difficult to pull, more difficult pull rates does not necessarily indicate, does not necessarily drive more expensive prices. Because if you look, these are more difficult to pull than the special illustration rares from Temporal Forces, yet you have very low, you only have two Rainbow Rares in the entire set of Astral Radiance that are selling for double-digit pricing. So you've got that Irida right there that's selling for $13.82. You've got the Origin Form Palkia V-Star that's selling for $10.78. Everything else is single digits, all the way down to Kamado down there. Kamado selling for $3.82. You have the Silene selling for $4.03. You have the Zisu selling for $4.44. The Gardenia's Vigor is selling for $5.10. You have the Hisuian Samurott at $6.70. The Heatran VMAX at $7.17. The Hisuian Lilligant at $7.25. The Cleaver V-Star at $7.46. The Machamp VMAX is $8.29. The Hisuian Typhlosion $8.56. And then the Dialga V-Star, the Origin Form Dialga V-Star, selling for $9.71. So all of these pretty much single digits when it comes to the Rainbow Rares, despite the fact that they're more difficult to pull. Okay, so what if we talk about demand, though, being more associated with alternate arts? Alternate arts, much more difficult to pull, right? Like 4 times as difficult to pull almost. It takes you a little bit over 2 boxes to pull a special illustration rare from Temporal Forces. For Astral Radiance, it took you over a case. It took you about a case and 2 boxes in order to, that was the average pull rate in order to pull an alternate art. And if you look at the pricing model for this, and I understand the market is backwards, there's also a lot more Astral Radiance. So supply isn't necessarily equal to what the supply is going to be for Temporal Forces. I think the fact that a lot of people just haven't opened up a ton of Temporal Forces, that's why I'm talking before, it seems like I'm running in circles here. That's why I was talking before about how it's really important right now not to FOMO, not to watch these prices skyrocket and be like, oh my goodness, Iron Crown sold out at $50. I need to find one for like $100 because right now it's $200. That's what I'm saying, pump the brakes. I don't think that this is necessarily a good indicator of how the set's long-term performance is going to be, because if you look at alternate arts, now Astral Radiance came out a couple years ago already. $87.48 is the most expensive card in the set, and that's the alternate art Machamp V. At one point in time, this was selling for $125. So the demand for this card has sunk down quite a bit because more and more supply has kind of hit the market. And there's been a lot more Astral Radiance opened. However, it also, you need to remember that it's 4 times more difficult to pull an alternate art than a special illustration rare. And then if you look at some of these lower level pricing, alternate arts like Origin Form Palkia V is currently selling for about $34, and that was supposed to be a super competitive card that did drive the market a little bit. Origin Form Dialga, $28.51, and then some beautiful artworks down here, like Hisuian Lilligant selling for $10.19, Hisuian Sneasler selling for $20.30, and Beedrill V selling for $23.96. And if you look at the available supply that's out there, there's not a ton of them available, but they're not being bought up like crazy. So only 36 of the alternate art Machamp Vs, 62 of the Palkia, 74 of the Dialga, and then a lot more for like the Hisuian Lilligant. But then when I took snips of how the special illustration rares from Temporal Forces were performing last night, and we're going to look at how they're performing this morning as well. Iron Crown EX, only 2 left. 2 left at $52.99 basically. I think there was one at like $69.99 was the other one. So very, very small quantity, very limited availability when it comes to that Iron Crown EX. And your cheapest one, basically $57. That's your most expensive of the special illustration rares. When you look at Iron Leaves, which was the most expensive card in the set, still plenty available at 51 listings, which is more than you have of the Machamp V. But obviously demand's going to be a little higher right now because Temporal Forces just came out. Raging Bolt starting to dwindle. Only 26 listings available, $47.30. Gouging Fire, still a little bit more available. 41 listings, selling for $35. Morty's Conviction, same thing, 35 listings, selling for $37 right now. Bianca's Devotion, one of the cards that started up a little bit higher, is your one special illustration rare that has over 60 listings available. So 63 listings at starting at $34 a piece. But Walking Wake, then you start getting limited quantities again, $37.70, but only 14 available. If you look at the Airy, 54 listings at $26.99, 35 listings for Iron Boulder at $19.99, and 49 listings for Salvatore at $9.80. So demand seems to be outweighing supply on a few of these, like Iron Crown, Raging Bolt, and Walking Wake. Everything else, demand and supply, seem to be adding up fairly nicely, which is why you see prices falling down and why pull rates aren't necessarily a true indicator of pricing. It's not a driving factor of pricing because there still is going to be plenty available. Now, if you look this morning, Iron Crown EX sold out at that $52 price point. Now, it's important to note that the market price has remained at $57.35. So if we click on this, you can see there has been one that sold for $247.99. Now, the important thing to remember is that is not a good indicator of how the card is actually going to perform. There's many things that could be wrong with this. Somebody could have just freaked out in FOMO and bought it at $250. Somebody could have bought it without the intention of paying, so that way they purposely can manipulate the market and make it seem like it's a more expensive card, but you have plenty of listings here available. Now all of a sudden over $200 a piece. Only single listings and a couple of double listings, a couple of people who have 2 available listings, but I don't think it's going to settle anywhere near $200. And that's why it's so important not to FOMO right now. Even if you find it for like $120, $130 and you're like, oh, I got to pull the trigger because now it's selling for over $200. I wouldn't. I would wait. If we look at the other cards that are available, Raging Bolt is down to its final listing at $75. So you know that card is probably going to be bought at that $75 price point, and then it's going to probably be relisted at a much more expensive rate. Then we've got Walking Wake EX. All of a sudden, you're down to 7 available, hovering right around that $40 price point for some of them. And then the last one, so really only 6 available under $50. And then you've got one that has 3 available at $75. So these are starting to fall as far as available listings go. Everything else still well above 30. Those should stay relatively true. If we look at the illustration rares, 26 for Ghastly. Cincino's only got 20. Sawsbuck is down to 13 available listings. That one is starting to climb up a little bit. But then you have other ones which have over 80 available, like Drampa, like Grottle, like Deerling over here, and Metagross over here. So still plenty available in a lot of the other ones. It just seems demand is really impacting these top 3 right here, the Cincino, the Sawsbuck, and the Ghastly. The Ghastly at one point selling for $10, $11. Now all of a sudden selling for between $20 and $30 a piece. And if you look at the full arts, you can kind of go over how these are performing as well. But for the most part, well over 80 listings, over 100 listings in many cases. Really, just the Gengar EX is the only one that seems to be a little bit lighter on supply. But demand is really what is driving these prices, demand for certain cards. So I do think that pull rates being bad has a limited factor in the supply that is really starting to hit the market right now, and that's why it's so important not to lose your mind. And we've talked about this a lot before, right? Like, you do not want to buy cards or buy a lot of cards opening weekend, because the prices need to settle, the prices need to be consistent. It's a lot of fun to watch. It's a lot of fun to kind of document and see how things are going. I do think Temporal Forces is going to be a set that a lot of people really do enjoy opening up, and it's a lot of fun to open up Temporal Forces because there's so much good artwork in it. However, I don't think the bad pull rates, if we look at what we've seen from like Astral Radiance, for example, where pull rates were much more difficult for alternate arts, and then you have relatively cheap, relatively inexpensive pricing. Like, I don't think anybody would be upset if you had the majority of your special illustration rares between $10 and $30 a piece, outside of this Machamp V selling for $87. I don't think anybody really assumes that Astral Radiance is an overpriced set. And with these being 4 times more difficult to pull than special illustration rares, that just kind of goes to show you that it's not necessarily difficult pull rates that drive the pricing of a set. It's really more demand for a product, and there's more demand for this Machamp, which is why you have lower listings available than all of these other alternate arts. Right now, there's more demand for Iron Crown probably being the most playable one, but I don't think there's enough demand for it to be selling for over $200, and that's why this is important to talk about. It's fun to watch, but maybe this is why you focus on opening Paldean Fates, or buying some singles up for Paldean Fates that you need to finish out your master set, or focus on some of these lower level cards, some of these cards that where supply is meeting demand, right? Like, the big thing is you want supply to equal demand. You don't want supply to outweigh demand. You don't want supply to be way under demand, or demand to outweigh supply. You want them to basically be equal, and that's why you have a lot of these cards basically supply and demand being equal right now. Maybe focus on those, and don't pay attention to the noise that's surrounding the Ghastly and the Iron Crown and the Walking Wake, and undoubtedly what is going to be coming from the Raging Bolt very, very soon, I would assume. But it's just very interesting information. It's very interesting to me. It might not be to you, and you can let me know in the comment section down below what you think. But lots going on here with Temporal Forces. There's a lot to digest, and that happens when completely out of nowhere the rug is pulled out and pull rates are completely different than what we're used to, what we have grown accustomed to. So there's a lot of driving factors behind demand, and one of those factors is greed. One of those factors is money. Like, that's really what could hurt pricing on these singles right out of the gate. And that's why I think it's really important that you don't FOMO, you don't go crazy and pay super expensive prices for some of these cards out of fear that, hey, if you can find it for $110, $120, you should buy it now, versus the $200 and $210 that's being, like, I think you need to just slow pump the brakes a lot. I do think we're looking at cards that are going to be these special illustration rares. I don't think any of them are going to be above $100 in the long run. Like, I think it's really important to wait and not make poor decisions. I think that's what's going to keep you in the game, in the hobby for the longest. So you can let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm going to stop rambling. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to watch, to listen, to kind of discuss this, and really just help me unpack my brain a little bit. So thank you so much for that. If you like the content, if you appreciate the content, please hit that subscribe button down below. Leave a like, leave a comment. It goes a really long way for the algorithm. Love you guys. I'll be back tomorrow with a short or a video or something. Until next time, you guys. Peace.